and Joe Rossinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. I kind of chuckled a little bit because if you thought this election cycle couldn't get any crazier, well, it just did. Now, for those of you who are living on an island somewhere, we're going to report to you that RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, has died. She died over the weekend at 87 years old from her, I think, her third bout with pancreatic cancer. Joe and I are not paying lip service to anything. We are praying for her eternal soul. And we don't care who that bothers, okay? We know exactly what she stood for. We knew exactly what she represented. And we are praying for her soul. So let's get that straight right off the bat. Having said that, we started off by saying the election cycle is going to get crazy. It already has been crazy. Now it gets crazier. We didn't plan on talking about this, but obviously this is big and it's in the news. So we want to give you our take on it, okay? And our take is very simply this. And we could go 10 hours on this subject, okay? But we're going to keep it brief from the front line with Joe and Joe. My main point is a very simple one. The Democrats have thrown out all civility, decorum, tradition, rules. Just look at the impeachment, in the House, and you can see how they threw away the rules. They don't have any rules. And our message to Mitch McConnell, we don't need to send a message to Donald Trump. He already said he's moving forward with a nominee. He'll be putting up somebody this week. Joe and well, actually, I don't know where you are. I think it's going to be. Let's see, let's call her ACB. ACB replacing RBG, Amy Coney Barrett. He basically promised her the spot. All right, he promised her Ginsburg's spot if he had the power to do it. And Donald Trump's going to put her up, or a woman. He did commit to a woman. Mitch McConnell has said that the Senate's going to vote on it and the election be damned. He didn't say those words. I'm saying those words. Why? Because you don't need to look too deep into the Democrats over the last few years, especially under Donald Trump. They have no boundaries. Mitch McConnell should not adhere to any Senate rules, Senate tradition, Senate decorum, Senate civility, out the window. Rally the Republicans, get this vote, and get this nominee on the Supreme Court. And you want to know if they're worried about the American people? The American people will have something to say about that action on Election Day. They'll either love it or they won't. But again, I'm not speaking for Joe, but I think I am for the most part. We've discussed this somewhat. Mitch McConnell needs to move forward, and he needs to whip those senators like Murkowski, Collins, Mitt Romney. I cringed. My stomach just turned when I mentioned Mitt Romney's name. And Ben Sass. And he better make them understand you are Republicans. And a Republican president is going to put up a highly qualified nominee, and you will vote for that nominee. That's what I think he should do.
Well, I'll tell you, I do think that they are going to put up a nominee. I think they're going to go with the Cuban from Miami. That's my thought. It's going to be either Amy or her. I think because it's a swing state. I think because she's Hispanic, she's young, and she's a woman. Those are my thoughts. Joe made a very good point when we were talking about this earlier that Barrett has already been vetted. That's a valid argument. I still think he's going to go the other way. Either way, they're good picks. He will move forward. And here's the thing. Maybe it was a custom to not put forth a Supreme Court justice in an election year, but it's not a requirement to not do so. What I mean by that is Trump,
not in the Constitution.
And it's perfectly licit. It's perfectly licit. So I do not begrudge Donald Trump for doing it because he can do it legally.
Right.
Now, what are the consequences? Things that bother me. If the Democrats do win the presidency and they win the Senate, they're going to take away the filibuster to punish you. The next thing they're going to do is they're going to pack the court. You see, that destroys the fabric of America. And this is my problem with this party. They're willing to burn down the House to get their way. This is a problem, and frankly, it's not going to go away with replacing Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is a problem that runs very deep, and frankly, it bothers me and it scares me because it's a matter of wills. This party absolutely, positively refuses to lose. And when they lose, they change the rules. And that's what they're going to do. This is not going to end.
Well, then we have to make them
I
lose.
hope
We have to make them lose. Tim Gordon made a good point on our show. He said the left loves to win, and they're very good at it because they don't leave any stone unturned. Tim Gordon's example, he goes, if they see 2 inches over there that they haven't gotten through, they say, why haven't we gotten that yet? The Republicans, Mitch McConnell, and I think he's got his head on straight in all this, but the other ones have to understand, okay? They want to pass off Donald Trump as a threat. As Joe just said, they'll burn down the House. The House meaning the government and the entire nation. We know that about them. We know this is what they're all about. Okay, so you know what? Mitch McConnell would not be burning down the House. Mitch McConnell will be adhering to the Constitution, which says the president nominates a judge, the Senate gives advice and consent, and then votes on it. Okay, and doesn't matter if it's an election year, like you said, that's custom. Well, guess what? Custom has gone out the window. We are long gone from the days. Let me give you an example. We were talking earlier today. Okay, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was approved by the Senate. I think it was 97 to nothing. Antonin Scalia was approved by the Senate 99 to nothing. That was in the 90s. Those days are long gone. They are long gone. That is not the way the Senate operates now. Now it is completely partisan. It is completely political. So you want to know something? And obviously, it all has to do with abortion. All of it has to do with abortion. So you know what? Mitch McConnell has to say, this is our constitutional authority to do so. We are going to do it, and we don't care. Again, they'll have to be held accountable by the American people on November 3rd. If they get a judge on the court by November 3rd, the American people will either love it or they'll hate it. I think it's worth the risk. I think
you got to move forward.
I think so. I want to make one other point to you. Tell me what you think. Trump right now, in this moment, because of RBG's passing, okay, in this moment, he should assume he's losing the election, and Mitch McConnell should assume, okay, even if it's just a thought in their head, that they're going to lose this, that the Republicans are going to lose the Senate.
Could happen.
And in which case, they have an historic opportunity. And that is historic because the court has not been solidly conservative in a very long time, okay? So this is an historic thing. They should assume they're going to lose, and they're never going to get this chance again. That's what they should do, okay? And this way, if Breyer dies or retires or whatever, and it's a Democrat, well, a Democrat's replacing a Democrat with a Democrat. That's how important this is. They should assume they're going to lose and say, well, we have an opportunity here. Let's get another conservative on the court. What do you think about that?
I think there's no question you have to move forward. There is no question you have to move forward. Sadly, you have to play to win. This is a battle of wills. And frankly, I'm going to be honest, I think they have the stronger will. Republicans have to toughen up here, people. The problem is, and I've been sensing this when I hear various interviews, particularly on Fox, I don't even think they have the will, because here's the thing. I don't think they actually want a conservative court, a truly conservative court, because there's certain things, like Joe said, abortion. This is something that scares worldly people, secular people, people who live in the mainstream, people who, frankly, use sex as a recreational activity. There are people who are not faithful in their marriage, and abortion is the out. And I'm telling you, even quote unquote conservatives, this shakes them to the core. And you see, the problem here, this is my view. No politician can fix the mess of our republic. I sometimes think about, and you know, like, to be honest with you, what Joe and I do. I reflect on it a lot, actually. And I say, what are we doing? Are we helping? What we try to do is convey the truth. That's what we try to do. Obviously, we have our own biases and our own opinions as well. With that said, the problem here is beyond a man or a woman. This is a sin problem. Our country has bought into a lie. The horse is out of the barn. And frankly, Donald Trump is not going to solve the problems of America. I do think he buys us time. And what I mean by that, it's the judges. You see, the judges, that's why I am voting for Donald Trump. There are other issues, I'm not going to say, but my primary issue are judges. And Joe and I, by the way, for 2 years have been saying that. It's not just Supreme Court judges, it's also federal court judges. This is the issue.
And look at our video from last week if you want to see the breakdown and how Donald Trump has changed the federal judiciary. He's flipped 3 circuits, okay? And he could, and on 3 of those circuits, 2 of those circuits cover New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about one case where a Trump judge smacked down Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania, and another 4 years of Trump, and every single federal court in this country, federal circuit court in this country, could have a majority Republican nominated judges on it. That includes the liberal Ninth Circuit on the West Coast. So let's get it straight. We get our democracy back if we have the judges in place.
Well, it protects us. But the problem is still there. You see, this is where America, like, to be honest with you, I don't know what could, well, it's only God that can fix America. What I would encourage people to do, I mean, we're Catholics. What I would say is we have to turn to God. We have to pray and we have to fast for our country. This is my solution. On top of speaking the truth, but you can't speak to a hard head. Sadly, you can't convince a lot of people, even with blatant truths. They don't want to hear it. I mean, I just was listening today to Joe Biden, who just referred to 20 million people are going to die of COVID-19 before my speech is over. He misspoke. He obviously wanted to say 200,000 people. He said 200 million people. This man, and I'm saying this objectively, he is not prepared or capable to hold that office. He's not, I'm not going to say he's senile or he's suffering from dementia. What I'm going to say, and I think it's a fair statement, he's simply not sharp enough to hold the position. As Joe said when I was talking to him about this, he's not going to hold the position.
Right.
He is a figurehead.
He's the Manchurian candidate.
That is a fact. By the way, Kamala Harris is a figurehead too.
Right. She's going to be she's not going to be president. If Biden gets declared incapacitated or just falls on his sword and she sits in the Oval Office, you can forget it. Obama and all the men, let's get that straight, all the men in the Democrat Party are going to say, we're not calling you Mrs. President. Go in the corner and shut up. You just do what we tell you. That's going to be Kamala Harris. Kamala.
And this is where we're at. I'm telling you, we just interviewed John Horvat, who runs the American operation for tradition, family, and property out of Pennsylvania. He was like, down the road, there won't even be elections.
Right.
Just like what you have in Russia. Putin is the leader until he dies. Those elections are a farce. The person that was basically his newest rival just magically died.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is, this is the direction we're headed in. And I got news for you, and then we'll get to our stories. If Biden wins through fraud, the next step is they're going to institutionalize the fraud. They're going to make the fraud legal. Everything the Nazis did in Germany to the Jewish people was gradual and legal.
And legal.
I'm not saying that they're Nazis, but what I am saying is if they win by fraud, i.e. the mail-in ballots and the lawyers choose the president and not the people of the United States, whoever has the better lawyer team wins, they will then institutionalize the fraud. They will pack the court. They will take away the filibuster. They will water down our rights, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and basically they will absolutely and utterly change this country fundamentally. Now, some people want that, but a lot of people don't. And this is where I plead to those who are voting for Democrats who are not thinking through the policies, who are simply voting for Joe Biden because they don't like Donald Trump, and simply that's the only reason why they're voting for Joe Biden. Please do some reading. Think about what you're doing. If you don't like Donald Trump, don't vote for him. Write somebody in. Write your next door neighbor in. Meet your duty.
Write me in.
But don't just vote for Joe Biden. Because I'm telling you this, my friends, and this is not, I'm not speaking as a Catholic. I'm not speaking, frankly, like I'm speaking as an American. Their ideas are fundamentally different than what our country has believed and has lived by since the beginning.
Yep.
If you're for that, go for it.
Right.
Keep this in mind. They're going to tax the living daylights out of you. I hope you're rich. They're going to tax the living daylights out of you. The middle class is going to shrink.
Middle class is going to be gone.
Correct.
Middle class is going to be gone. Biden gets elected. We should move on. All right, but did you have anything else you wanted to add? All right, you're listening to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello live, Facebook, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other platforms. 8 o'clock on Sunday night. We have a lot of people right now. Too many to mention, so I apologize in advance. Sandra's here. Thomas is here. Thomas listens to us on the Crusade channel. Don't forget about the Crusade channel. Mike Church's station out of New Orleans. You could do a free subscription, a 30-day free trial. He's got a great channel. Joe and I are on there on Mondays. And, Sandra's here, Vinny's here, a whole bunch of people. We love you all. I'm sorry I can't mention you all because by the time I get done reading your names, it'll be 9:30. But we love you to death. So we're going to talk about what's going to happen. All right. And one more time, pray for the soul of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We are all forgiven. Okay. Here's a little, what would you call it? A little preaching to you. Okay. Don't be the servant who refused to forgive the servant who owed him money after having been forgiven by the master. Okay. Pray for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay. Any one of us at a moment in our lives, let's say when we're not doing the right thing, could end up in hell. We don't wish that and pray for that for anybody. So as good Catholics, pray for her soul and pray that God shows mercy on her soul. And that comes from our hearts. Okay. So we would ask you to do that. So let's get into, look, a couple things that are going to go on. Joe just touched on it a little bit. Number one, if the Democrats lose, all right, there's going to be riots. And they're threatening that. So we're going to break that. Am I right?
Absolutely.
They're threatening that. They're threatening the American people right now.
Straight up.
Okay? Because you know why they're doing that, by the way? Because they know even the mail-in fraud's not going to work. They know that. They know that it's not going to work. So now they're resorting to threats. You got a Soros back. Could we say George Soros? Because somebody said
Newt
Gingrich got cut off of Fox News because he mentioned George Soros. And now if you mention George Soros in a critical way, you're an anti-Semite. I don't know how that works out. Last time I checked, George Soros is an atheist. However, you're an anti-Semite if you mention George Soros. But Joe and I are going to mention George Soros. Bill Barr is our second biggest reason for voting for Donald Trump. Okay? We need that guy, and we need him for another 4 years. He ain't playing games. Okay? So Barr basically has said that the greatest intrusion on civil liberties is this coronavirus lockdown. That's since slavery. And he knows what he's talking about because he's Bill Barr. He also slammed Democrats. We're going to get into that. Alan Dershowitz is suing CNN. And I really want to talk. We want to talk about everything. I want to talk about that story.
He gets it.
That is a big story. And we're going to tell you why. And a judge. Okay, see? Judges handed down those Lancaster rioters. He imposed on them $1 million bail each. Now that is a judge who knows how to fight against leftist thugs. So let's get into it at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Remember, like, subscribe, share, follow, tell your friends, family, even people that are your enemies. Tell them we found these great guys, Joe and Joe. You can listen to them at 8 o'clock live on social media. Do that for us. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe to our page. Please hit the little bell. They might not let us run through their algorithms, but by your actions, by doing things like that, that will help us in the algorithms. So having said all that, let's get into the fact that we're all being threatened by the left. They've threatened us.
As Joe said, the Democrats will riot if they lose. Therefore, Republicans should let Joe Biden win. Really? The Atlantic published an op-ed that argues that law and order Republicans should vote for Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden because the Democrats will riot if he loses, refusing to accept the results of if President Trump wins re-election. In an essay entitled, "The Democrats May Not Be Able to Concede," Shadi Hamid writes, this is in The Atlantic, A loss by Biden under these circumstances is the worst case, not because Trump will destroy America, he can't, but because it is the outcome most likely to undermine the faith in democracy, resulting in more of civil unrest and street battles that cities including Portland and Seattle have seen in recent months.
Let me stop you right here for 1 second, Joe, before you continue, okay? If Trump is elected, that undermines our democracy. That means if
he's delusional.
No, he's he's a loser. On top of being delusional, he's a loser. This is their narrative. If Trump gets reelected, that means if you all go out and vote for him, or we go out and vote for him, or the good people of Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, which according to Rasmussen right now is tied. Trump can lose Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. But if he wins Minnesota and the rest of the states he won in 2016, he still wins the Electoral College. Here's the point. It's undermining our democracy because the people of the United States of America voted for Donald Trump. Do you see how evil they are? And it goes to the point that we've always said, and many people have said, this isn't about the fact they hate Donald Trump. They can't stand you. They can't stand you.
And frankly, they just can't accept the fact that they're not getting their way. I had to endure 8 years of Barack Obama. I didn't hurt anybody.
I didn't riot.
Burn anything down. Frankly, I just stopped watching the news because it used to make me ill. That's what I did. Other than that, that's all I did.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, as a Catholic, Barack Obama directly attacked my church. I still didn't hurt anybody. I didn't riot. I didn't burn anything down. That's the difference. This man is delusional. He goes on. For this reason, strictly law and order Republicans who have responded in dismay to scenes of rioting and looting have an interest in Biden winning, even if they could never bring themselves to vote for him. He's basically saying, please vote for Joe Biden, because if you don't, we're going to hurt you. He's threatening you. He's threatening you. And someone recently just said, is it Gretel? In the chat room right here, they're scared. I do believe that. I do believe that. This is a person who is scared. And if you ask me, I think this is a pathetic statement to make. You know, Shahid goes on. This is what he also says. He says, in presidential elections, once a fluke, twice is a pattern. I struggle to imagine how, beyond utter shock, millions of Democrats will process a Trump victory. A loss for Biden, after having been the clear favorite all summer, would provoke mass disillusionment with electoral politics as a means of change at a time while disillusion is already dangerously high. I would agree with him there. If Democrats can't beat a candidate as unpopular as Trump during a devastating pandemic and a massive economic contradiction, they're incapable of possibly ever winning the election to take the presidency.
But why is it that this guy will not accept the fact that the American people don't want this radical agenda from the left? And he brings up COVID and the economy. We had the best economy in my lifetime before COVID. The best economy. So you think the American people are stupid? What's his name? Hamid? You think we're all stupid? We don't know that it was the coronavirus and the lockdowns imposed by Democrat governors way too long that have caused the economy to lag this far and to struggle this long. Because if it was up to Trump, okay, the economy would be fully open already, all right, and the numbers for COVID would be down even more. It's you people who have kept this going. It's you. So the thing is this. So here's my point. Donald Trump, to your consternation, okay, has gotten credit for COVID. They can't stand the fact that it worked for a while. Them attacking Trump, Joe, okay, and driving Trump's numbers down worked in July. But guess what? Now the American people look and say, you know what, Trump, and especially in comparison to Cuomo, who killed old people in the nursing homes, Murphy, okay, the governor of Connecticut, the governor of Massachusetts. Notice they look at it and say, you know what? Trump's actually done a pretty good job. And it's reflected in the numbers. So when this guy laments that the economy and COVID couldn't bring down Donald Trump, it's because people who have brain cells in their head say Trump gave us the best economy we've ever had. And he was not responsible for COVID. In fact, he did a really good job when it came to managing COVID. And they can't stand that because, Joe, their narratives don't stick.
Well,
They don't stick.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, the Atlantic, just so you know, I mean, they were responsible for a story earlier this month claiming that President Trump disparaged the troops, which has been refuted by over 20 witnesses, including the former national security advisor, John Bolton, who doesn't exactly like Donald Trump.
Right. Let's be clear about that. So they lied about that too. It's another narrative because they tried to get the military against Donald Trump because they know the military loves Donald Trump. So they tried to spin it where the military. He said somebody said mean things. Thomas said Trump says mean things. He said mean things about the military.
Why they're doing that?
Right?
Because in a coup, you need the military.
They're
Joe, don't think that they don't think. They're thinking 17 steps ahead.
You think the military, the American military, I'm talking about the rank and file.
No, but that
Do they really think the military is going to listen to them? The same people that spit on them when they came home from Vietnam?
They're trying, is my point. That was an attempt. And, and I'll be honest with you, I'll throw another attempt. Donald Trump, when he spoke out against the generals and said, I have an issue with them, and that was also a play. Donald Trump is smart. Believe me, if there was ever a coup, whoever controls the military controls America.
Right.
That's how it works. When you look at other countries, you always notice that the general becomes the president.
Yeah.
Because they have the guns. I mean, when push comes to shove, the justice with their robe isn't going to demand that someone is the president.
Right.
It's the military.
Right.
That was a play. If you ask me,
no.
That was a subtle play.
Yeah.
And it was bogus. It was refuted by 20 different people, including John Bolton. The Atlantic is a rag. And this gentleman, sadly, is disillusioned. Or
delusional.
Fair enough. I mean, his reality, they're looking through a skewed view. All we try to do is present the truth. That's all I'm trying to do. Listen, if Donald Trump lost this election fairly, if we had a regular voting process, which we don't now, I got news for you. Lawyers are going to determine this presidency. I got news for you people. And I'm going to throw this out to you. From November to January, buckle up. Because there's going to be violence in this country.
Well, there already is.
It's not going to be us.
It's just going to get worse.
But it's going to get crazy. And that's the shame of it, and they know it.
Right.
They know it.
Yes.
Lawyers are going to determine, they're going to dispute this election in a number of states. Lawyers are going to determine who the presidency.
Well, I hope
Trump wins the presidency.
I hope Trump has the most savage lawyers there are.
Oh, he does.
I hope Amy Coney Barrett is sitting on the Supreme Court. So if they do decide to throw it to the court, guess what? Then no matter what John Roberts does, you're going to get a majority on that court that are going to side against, not for Donald Trump, against the left. Quick shout out, because we love Barbara so much. Barbara's been with us from the beginning, watching us through and through. All you good people out there, do what Barbara did. Barbara said, Barbara from Wisconsin, hello from Wisconsin. I'm watching on my iPad and Facebook, but I went here to YouTube to check so I can help you with the algorithm. So all you people, not now, later, go and like this video, okay? And subscribe. You're listening to The Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. I think there's enough good people in this country, and we'll get into we'll get into it in a little bit later, like Bill Barr and others like him. I don't think it's a lost cause. I do think they're going to try to cause as much chaos as possible. And yes, to a finer point on it, Amy Coney Barrett or whoever his nominee is has to be sitting on that court sometime in November. Okay, because remember, even if Biden wins, it won't be till January, sometime in November. And if it does go into the courts, if the lawyers get involved, number one, Donald Trump is going to have the most savage lawyers that anybody could ever have because he's a savage, and he's going to have savage lawyers, okay? And you're going to have 5 conservatives, not including John Roberts, on the Supreme Court. So they will lose. There'll be violence. We're not going to be shut down because they threaten us with violence. We already know there's going to be violence because there is violence, okay? But we're going to have our president in place. And then, without having to worry about re-election, I wouldn't want to be a reaction. I wouldn't want to be a violent revolutionary in Donald Trump's second term. Because like we were talking about, because then you're going to jail and then you're going to get $1 million bail.
Well, Soros-backed coalitions are preparing for a post-election day chaos. This is what they said, and these are their words, not mine. We're going to fight like hell. Under the guise of seeking to prevent constitutional crisis, I say that in quotations, a massive network of well-funded left-wing activists and progressive groups are training, organizing, and planning to mobilize millions of Americans should President Donald Trump contest the election results, refuse to concede, or claim an early victory. More than 80 advocacy groups and grassroots organizations have joined in a broad coalition calling itself Protect the Results and proclaiming that we cannot ignore the threat. This is their words, not mine. We cannot ignore the threat that Trump poses to our democracy and a peaceful transition of power. This is such projection, I could vomit. The coalition is a joint project of two groups, Indivisible and Stand Up America. These are two left-wing organizations founded in response to Donald Trump's 2016 victory. Their goals: to organize and resist Trump's dangerous agenda, to defeat Trump and his enablers, these are their words, seeking to protect election results by use of its millions of members. The coalition calls to take coordinated action, these are their words, not mine, and to prepare for a potential post-election crisis. Be prepared, warns a video on its homepage. Those are scary statements.
What I don't understand is this. If the polls are showing, now this is what I don't understand. If Trump wins all the states he won in 2016, and then he picks off Minnesota, which is tied right now, and somebody mentioned, I think it was Thomas mentioned that Michael Matt actually held a rally in Minnesota.
Good.
Okay, love Michael Matt, follow the Remnant. Remnant TV. You can find him on YouTube. Michael Matt's a good Catholic guy. His family goes back decades. They're one of great Catholic family. If Trump wins Minnesota alongside of that, and Trump has been in Nevada, and he picks off Nevada, okay. I'm not a scumbag leftist. I don't know how they could look at that and say, well, we could flip this. Like, I don't know how they would do it if Trump wins 320 electoral votes to like 220. What are they going to say? That there was fraud? And who will be the ones, is my question, that are questioning the legitimacy of the election? Who will be the ones who will not concede? It's going to be them.
Well, that's what
they're projecting this on Trump.
It actually gets worse. I mean, just so you know, for the record, Indivisible and Stand Up America are part of the Democracy Alliance, and that is Soros funded. Just so you know. I mean, I want to read you some of the statements. This is such projection. When I read this, I mean, I was just like, these people are freaking delusional. This is what they say. Our resistance is key in protecting the outcome of this election, said Hashari Michelle Hatch, the executive director of Color of Change. We will mobilize to safeguard Black people from the chaos and the pain that will inevitably ensue should Donald Trump choose to disregard reality in November. It's you who are disregarding reality. It gets worse. Trump's laying the groundwork now to steal the election. We need to lay the groundwork now to fight back. That is Sarah Dole, the co-founder and chief communications officer of Indivisible. She's not done. She says, Trump is already laying the groundwork by declaring the election is rigged. So we are sounding the alarm now, claiming that for years Trump has sought to undermine our elections again and again. We would mobilize, take to the streets, put pressure on state and local election officials to make clear that the American people are not going to let Donald Trump steal this election. Lastly, Donald Trump is not running a re-election campaign. He's running a power grab. This is Ben Weasel, appropriately Weisel.
I like Weasel better.
The executive director of Next Gen America, a coalition group founded by the billionaire Tom Steyer, who failed as a Democratic presidential nominee.
Well, he's going to fail. He's going to fail again.
But he's a major donor to the Soros organization, DA.
Well, he's a billionaire.
I mean, this is the projection. I'll be honest with you. If you ask me, they're telling us what they're going to do. They are not, even if Trump wins, and this is my prayer, I'm going to tell you, a lot of people are saying pray, pray, pray in the chat room. My prayer is this, that Trump wins outright, that there is no doubt that he won. Like Joe said, he wins states like Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, Florida. Like they are just outwardly.
It's a drubbing.
I hope it is, because when that does happen, they're still not going to accept it. They're still not going to accept
But
it.
it'll be
telling us.
But it'll be a lot less likely for them to make any headway. Okay, if in fact the numbers look like that.
I hope you're right.
Okay.
I hope you're right. But remember what Hillary Clinton recently said. She said, "Do not concede." The battle isn't November 3rd, my friends. It's after. You see, the lawyers are going to decide this election. And this is what we're going to talk about it in the next segment with DA Barr, basically, or AG Barr. Basically, what they're doing is they're undermining the confidence in the election. That hurts America. And they're doing that on purpose because they know they have no shot of winning. They have no shot. And they know it. And they're using this to undermine the confidence, to basically say the election was rigged and it was a scam. And that's what these people are saying. And Donald Trump stole it. So we are not going to tolerate it.
Right.
That is what's going to happen.
Right.
And this is an affront to America. It's an affront to all people who actually vote. What they're basically saying is this: I don't care who you elect. We will tell you.
We'll tell you who your president is going to be.
And that's why this is a nefarious group of people.
That's right.
This is a dangerous group of people. And they are ruthless.
That's right. That's right. And everything they do is projection. We've said it a million times, and that's exactly what the story is about. They're accusing Trump of not going to, or they're saying that he won't be willing to concede the election when it's they themselves who, like you said, they're saying it. Now, I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. I mean, I do to a degree when we're talking about issues. When it comes to elections, you shouldn't be for this. If you're a Democrat, you should not be for this. You should not be for replacing the going to the voting booth with mail-in ballots, which you know are rife with fraud, all right, with potential fraud. And the other thing, too, for all you Democrats, don't you dare think that the shoe won't eventually be on the other foot. Don't you dare think that. Like we said in the beginning, throw it all out the window. If this is the road you're going to go down, this is the precedent you're establishing for the future. And Republicans are going to do it in the future, and you're going to piss and moan then. Okay?
Well, let's talk Bill Barr, all things Bill Barr. He was in the news this week, and he had a lot of very important things to say, and we want to communicate that to you and have a little bit of a discussion. To begin with, Barr weighed in on the coronavirus lockdowns. This is what he had to say. Barr recently stated, other than slavery, which has a different kind of restraint, these are his words, the coronavirus lockdowns were the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history. Throughout the coronavirus pandemic, Barr has expressed alarm at the restrictions imposed by state authorities on the First Amendment rights, particularly the freedom of religion. He explained that while there might be a reasonable and temporary restrictions placed on our First Amendment rights for the sake of public health, they should not become an overburdening infringement.
Right.
He's spot on.
Yeah.
He's spot on. And there, just to give you some evidence of that, and we're going to go to Pennsylvania. Earlier this week, a federal judge ruled that Pennsylvania's coronavirus lockdowns were unconstitutional. While the state's actions may have been undertaken with the good intention of addressing the public health emergency, and this is the judge that Joe alluded to in the beginning of the show, Judge William Stickman ruled, even in an emergency, the authority of government is not unfettered.
You get that? You get that, Murphy? You get that, Wolf? You get that, Whitmer? It's not unfettered, even in an emergency.
The liberties protected by the Constitution are not fair weather freedoms.
Yeah, they don't come and go based on what you think when you wake up in the morning, Murphy, or Cuomo, or Wolf, or the rest of you.
And he says, in place when times are good, but put aside in times of trouble. By the way,
can I read the punchline? I've been waiting since I sent you this to read the punchline. Judge William Stickman, age 41, is an appointee of Donald J. Trump.
Mary Day in the chat room knows it too, and that's why judges are important. People, this puts an exclamation point on our point for 2 years.
Right, and if you had Biden, so let's just put it in practical terms, okay? We're not talking ideology here. Practical terms. If Joe Biden gets elected president, Tom Wolf gets to do whatever he wants to the good people of Pennsylvania. Gretchen Whitmer gets to do whatever she wants to the good people of Michigan. Okay, Murphy gets to do whatever he wants to the good people of New Jersey, and so on and so on. Okay, that's why. Do you want to be on lockdown? Do you read the numbers? Do you see the numbers are now no worse than the flu? Do you want to not be able to go to work? Do you not be able to want to go to church? Do you not be able to want to have a party or a barbecue? It's wintertime now, or going to be. Do you want to have a party in one of your homes for your family and have a get together without the Gestapo knocking on the door saying you're not wearing masks and social distancing? Do you want it in America where a mayor of a major metropolitan city like Chicago says, we will cite you, we will arrest you, and we will bring you to jail? Now that's Lori Lightfoot, who said that to her own, she threatened her own constituents because they don't agree with her lockdown orders, and they had a party. And she threatened them with jail. She doesn't threaten the thugs who are killing one another. Okay? Every weekend. She doesn't threaten them with jail. She threatens people who want to have a get-together who say, listen, we know this is all BS, and we're getting together. Your reaction to Corona is nothing but BS, and we're not dealing with it. Is this the America you want? If so, be like a couple of people who are in the chat room right now. By the way, watch your mouth in the chat room, okay? But be like some of the people in the chat room. Go vote for Biden if that's the America you want. Go ahead. But don't begrudge me because I don't want that, okay? And that's practical. This lockdown's got to end.
Well, Barr isn't done because he further slams the Democrats this week. He did an interview on WGN radio, and basically he said that the Democrats were demanding Joe Biden or no peace, adding that this is very telling. This was a very good interview. And I also invite all of you people, read what Barr puts out there. This guy has the potential, Joe, if you ask me, to go down as one of the best attorney generals in the history of our country. This is his second time around, and that's not by accident.
No.
He knows the law. He's the smartest guy in the room, and if you read the stuff he puts out, it's spot on. He basically goes on, he says, creating an incendiary situation, he's talking about the Democrats, that would lead to rule by mob and a socialist path. He says, the so-called resistance, which is not a proper term to be used in our democracy, instead of loyal opposition, it became actual resistance. There undoubtedly are many people in the government who are trying to thwart the administration, and they're turning now to mob violence, and the countenance of the mob violence is another disturbing development. Because I think, this is what he says, increasingly the message the Democrats appear to be saying is this: Biden or no peace. That is the rule by the mob. And we're approaching that. And he is spot on.
Yes, Joe. He is. And
he is spot on. That is exactly what is happening. And he's saying it clearly.
And that is why they attack him so vociferously. There's a $64 word for you. Gretel says Barr's a genius and doesn't back down. Exactly right. Listen, this guy, same thing goes for Barr that goes for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a billionaire. Donald Trump came into office at what, 70 years old? Yeah, 69 years old? Okay. Donald Trump didn't need this.
He doesn't need this either.
He doesn't need it. And guess what? Bill Barr was retired. Okay. He was Attorney General. So he reached the top of his profession, and he doesn't need this either. But guess what? They actually do love America. So I really don't. Biden is a career politician. He needs to be president. Kamala Harris is a career politician. She needs to be president. Barack Obama is a career politician. He needs to be president because that's all they think about. Donald Trump wanted to be president because Donald Trump thought his ideas would be better. And you want to know what? History will show, even in the face of all these attacks on him, Russia, impeachment, COVID, all of it, okay, that Donald Trump has been a good president. He has been a good president.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And the thing is, he didn't need to do that, and Bill Barr doesn't need to be Attorney General, but Bill Barr is. You want to know why? Bill Barr loves people. The left hates people. And Bill Barr wants a good America where people can live free from mob rule.
Well, here's Barr. I think Barr is listening to our show because he's echoing some of the things that we've been saying time and time again. This is
if he's watching the show right now, Attorney General Barr, hit us up in our email, okay, and you're coming on the show.
That's what he says. He says, the effect on inner city communities has been devastating. Barr said, because unlike wealthier liberals, they could not buy their way out of it and move to gated communities. That's what's going on in Manhattan. People are leaving Manhattan in droves. Why? Because they have the money to do so.
Right.
People in the Bronx are staying right where they are. Barr hits it right on the head. He goes on. People in urban communities most affected by crime wanted more police, not fewer. While they wanted police reforms and felt the police had been insensitive, they did not want to weaken the criminal justice system. Barr added that this is the most important election of our lifetime. And as Attorney General, I'm not supposed to get into politics. However, I think we are getting into a position where we are going to find ourselves irrevocably committed to a socialist path.
That's right.
And I think if Donald Trump loses this election, that will be the case. In other words, I think there's now a clear fork in the road for our country. He's telling you this.
And we've thought in the past we've been at forks in the road. Real quick, Mary Day's joining us. Hi, Mary Day. We haven't seen you before. Welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Oscar says, hola. Hola, Oscar. Mary Day hit it on the head. Barr and Scalia are cut from the same cloth, understanding natural law. Now, when you talk about what Joe was just talking about, Mary Day, about socialism, why does the Catholic Church condemn socialism? Because so many tenets of socialism violate the natural law.
For centuries.
Private property. In other words, when you talk about, like, say, the natural right to private property,
the state replaces God.
Right. I mean, so it's all violations of the natural law. Barr understands that. Scalia understood that. Okay. So that's why Barr is railing against socialism. But having said that, the thing is, we are at a major fork in the road. I'm going to say, not that we haven't been in the past, but more so than we've ever been in the past. Because this is a very clear distinction. You're either going to have more federalism in this country, more states' rights, okay, more respect for states' rights, okay, decentralization of power, draining the swamp, standing up to foreign adversaries, not getting involved in foreign wars. You're going to either have that, or you're going to go down the globalist socialist path, which is going to be endless foreign wars that the oligarchs are going to force us into, that we as American citizens are going to have to pay for through our taxes. You're going to have the whole culture of death agenda imposed on us. This is a very clear fork in the road. Again, not that we haven't been at forks. This is the fork which either leads to our renewed prosperity and a renewed establishment of some sort of a real Christian moral foundation in this country, or it's going to dissolve into anarchy, which will then be reordered with a socialist imposition on the American people. There's your fork in the road right there.
And then Barr weighs in on the mail-in ballot situation. He warned that mail-in balloting, the process, is a terrible danger to the integrity of democracy. Once again, I think he's listening to our show. The traditional voting system, he said, has been designed to protect the secrecy of the ballot. All of that is gone in mail-in voting. There's no secret vote. Mail-in ballots were associated by design with the person who cast them. I'm telling you, this is going to absolutely destroy the confidence of the American voter on both sides of the aisle. And that is being done on purpose, because they're going to contest the election and they're going to say, if Donald Trump wins, he is not the legitimate president. Mark my words.
Unless Steve Bannon is right, and what you're going to get is a red barrage, which means that more states are going to go red on the electoral level, and Trump is going to win the popular vote. In which case, again, they could have all the lawyers they want, But again, because Trump has put real judges in place, okay, they're going to come up against a Trump judge and they're going to lose. And then they're going to riot. I mean, but they've been rioting now. They've been rioting now. Gretel's funny. Gretel says, this is a pitchfork in the road. Gretel, remember something. The real difference is, and you're right, by using the image of the pitchfork, the devil thinks he's in control. The difference is God knows that God's in control. Now, again, does that give me hope no matter what happens? Of course. But because God is in control of human history doesn't mean that we don't have to do our part. That's why I disagree with some people in the chat room who say, well, I don't know where this is being broadcast by right now. It must be a rosary site, and saying, well, we got to pray the rosary. Joe and I pray the rosary every single day. We don't deny the power of God and his working in all of this. But we still have a duty and an obligation to fight against evil, to speak out against it. And evil comes through politics. What is one of the biggest weapons of the devil? Governments. You think Stalin wasn't a tool of Satan? You think Mao wasn't a tool of Satan? You don't think communism was an inspired thought for Karl Marx from Satan? So give me a break, all you spiritual warriors out there. Joe and I pray our rosaries every single day. But we also do our part to fight this battle because souls are at stake.
And Sean, who's my roommate from college, who lives in Pennsylvania, he basically says that Pennsylvania extended the voting 3 days after the election. Again, a very dangerous practice. By the way, Hillary lost Pennsylvania. It was 44,000 votes. That was the difference.
It's going to be worse now.
And they also refused to have a third-party candidate. There was going to be a Green Party candidate in Pennsylvania, and that was basically not permitted.
How do you reject somebody who wants to be on the ballot if they have enough signatures?
Well, they reject them because it's rigged, and they want Donald Trump to lose the state because it's a must-win for Biden.
And the Green Party is going to take Democrat votes.
Correct. So this is what we're dealing with.
Do you remember them? Do you remember them?
Sad.
Do you remember them begging? Who was it? Who was the Ralph, the consumer advocate, real socialist?
I know what you mean.
Right.
I remember.
And they were begging him on the Bill Maher show. It was Bill Maher and Michael Moore begging him to drop out of the race. And he said, no, I can't stand both parties. Why should I drop out of the race?
I know exactly who
he
was a Princeton graduate.
Yeah, no, very, very, very smart guy. I don't know why his name, I'm getting old. I don't know why his name escapes me. But I will tell you this. He was always in favor of workers' rights. You know, he found overlap. I found astonishingly enough, Pat Buchanan and him. We got to find his name. Somebody in the chat room, find his name. Ralph, he was a consumer advocate. He ran the third party a couple of cycles.
That's it.
Ralph Nader. Pat Buchanan and Ralph Nader used to join Jimmy Hoffa in the late 60s, early 70s to rally for workers' rights. There's overlap there. I don't agree with the guy. He's a socialist, but there is some overlap there. But they were begging him. My point in telling the story, they're begging Ralph Nader, please drop out. We got to beat George Bush. Please back out. He goes, I hate them both. He goes, so I'm staying in the race. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. But you're at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We have a lively conversation going on in the chat room right now, and we thank you for it. We have about 60 or 65 people watching right now. So remember, like, subscribe, share, hit the little bell, YouTube and Facebook, do all that fun stuff like our good friend Barbara up in Wisconsin did. And we thank you also for supporting us as you all have up to this point. Joe and I are moving forward very rapidly at a really nice pace, making some very good relationships. You'll see a couple of recent interviews we did on our Facebook and YouTube page. We just interviewed John Horvat, who's now become a friend of the show. We talk to him at least once a month. Okay, Tim Gordon, he decided to come on the show. We had a great conversation with him about Catholic voting. That's also on our Facebook and our YouTube page. And there's really a lot of great interviews on there. So we encourage you, please, binge watch. Don't binge watch Netflix. Binge watch The Frontline with Joe and Joe. All right.
I want to end with one more thought from Barr, because I think this is very important. This is something that Joe and I have been beating the drum on this for a while. He lamented that much of the great thought that provided the foundation of American democracy has been forgotten, or perhaps never taught to young Americans. This is his words, and I'm going to quote them. He says, I personally think, and I've been saying this for decades, that the only way out of this is school choice.
Oh, I forgot about that part. This is so important.
Where we return education to the control of parents, He said that it is harder to believe that public schools could be neutral, and he says that in quotes, given that what is being defined as neutral was rejected by many Americans. The schools are controlled by the left. This was one of the biggest defeats of conservatism in America. We lost the education system.
They gave it up.
From kindergarten to Harvard. It is absolutely poisoning people. Gretel's talking about, saying that her parents come from Cuba. I grew up with a lot of Cuban guys and girls. We went to high school together. And frankly, Cubans, the ones that I knew, were very conservative. They were thrown out of their country. Many of them that were people of means, and they were tossed. I have had friends that went to liberal colleges. They came back completely different people. The schools, even some of, sadly, and I say this with a heavy heart, some of the Catholic schools, they're not educating people in a fair way. Listen, you have to have both sides of the house. You have to have both schools of thought. It's not being done. Kids go to school, they lose their faith, and frankly, they're being taught a bunch of crap in many respects. A lot of these schools, I wouldn't pay a dime. I don't send my school and spend $70,000 a year to send my kid to lose his soul.
Right.
Not happening. I'd rather him be a carpenter, for crying out loud, than do that. That's what's going on in this country. The education system is dominated by the left.
And Mary Day makes a good point. Mary Day, you must have been watching the Frontline with Joe and Joe in prior episodes. The greatest example of institutional or systematic or systemic racism, whichever phrase you want to give it, is the public education system in the inner cities. Those kids are slaves. They've been made slaves by the left and the teachers' unions, who refuse to allow for competition. So they have decrepit schools. They force these young black kids and Latino kids and minority kids into those schools, and they don't get educated. Trump has also said he wants to defund higher education if in those curriculums they're gonna seek to radicalize the students. In America, I'm sorry, you have freedom of speech and academic freedom, but your job is not to radicalize students. And that's what they've done. So you can go ahead, Harvard, if you want. But guess what? Donald Trump says you're going to lose federal dollars. Like Joe always says, cost them some money. See how fast they change. So anyway, you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. Ann's with us. Sean's with us. Rich is with us. So where are we headed next, Joe?
We're going to talk Alan Dershowitz. This is a great story.
I think this is a very important story, and we encourage you to stick around for this one, because this story, in my view, when I first read it, okay, I don't know what anybody else is saying about this. In our view, this could be a major, major defeat for the mainstream media, who is also, yes, the enemy of the American people. The mainstream media is your enemy. So listen closely, please, to this segment.
Harvard Law School professor, former professor Alan Dershowitz is suing CNN for $300 million for misreporting the substance of his defense of President Trump in the Senate impeachment trial earlier this year. Dershowitz has filed a suit in federal court in Florida alleging that CNN and its various commentators, this is his words, doctored the tape of his comments on the Senate floor in January to portray him as a kind of quote-unquote Hitler, his words, not mine, who believed that a president can break the law at will.
So they're calling Dershowitz a Hitler.
Though the president was ultimately acquitted, Dershowitz believes that CNN's incorrect portrayal of his argument in defiance of the available evidence caused him reputational harm. You see, this is something that Joe and I, again, have been saying time and time again. You move the dial with money. You see, principle has gone out the window. Keep this in mind. This man was the youngest tenured Harvard professor in the history of the college. He was a tenured professor before he was 30 at Harvard. He knows the law. And as Sean, my buddy from PA, my roommate, Sean Dever just said, he's brilliant. Why would he put a suit forward if he thought he was going to lose?
He wouldn't.
He would not. He may not get $300 million, but I'm going to make you a bet he's going to win. This is how you beat them.
Now, this is why this is important, okay? My initial reaction when Joe said we were covering this story, well, because as all of you know, or many of you know, or maybe you don't, Joe and I look over the last week. So a lot of the stuff we cover here you're getting our take on stories that have already been covered, but that's fine because we want to break it down. We find them important. Some have been covered more widely, some have not. Okay, so we're sure people are talking about this, but here was our take on it. Nick Sandman, our guest, that was the young man from Covington Catholic High School who sued CNN, Washington Post, and there's still other lawsuits going. Okay, he sued CNN and Washington Post for $250 million each. Okay, and wind up settling. Now, the amount was not disclosed. That's probably part. Sure, it was a lot of money. I'm going to guess Nick Salmon and his family probably could use that money. I'm going to guess that Nick Salmon, as a young man, obviously a young man in high school, has really really has been done reputational harm. In other words, his future will be affected because of the lies of CNN and Washington Post. So I don't begrudge Nick Salmon and his family for taking that settlement. Here's my take on Dershowitz. Dershowitz is in a position right now to really put the mainstream media in check, and here's why. Dershowitz is wealthy. He doesn't need the money. He's older, okay? And he has a chance to follow this all the way through to a jury verdict, which he'll win, by the way. He will win. I'm going to read to you in a second exactly why he'll win, okay? He will win, and he will cost them $300 million. Now,
that's big bucks.
That's a lot. If you're Zucker, Jeff Zucker, who runs CNN, what'd you pay Sandman? Let's assume Sandman's family got 10%. That's $25 million. Let's say Washington Post, that's Bezos. Let's say he paid Sandman $25 million. Okay, that's a lot of money. That's not $300 million. And if Dershowitz wins, which he will, that tells the media, next time you lie about somebody, you better make sure they're poor and they need some money. Because if it's somebody of means, like an Alan Dershowitz, they're going to take you right to a jury verdict, and it will cost you hundreds of millions of dollars every time you lie about somebody. You know what that'll do? Joe, what's it all about with these people?
It moves the dial.
What's it all about? Start costing CNN and Washington Post $300 million every time they lie about somebody. You know what they're going to stop doing?
They'll change.
They're going to stop lying about people.
And let's also talk about this. Why did CNN attack Dershowitz? I said this during the impeachment trial. His voice is the only voice you should listen to. I listened to his, it was brilliance. Pure brilliance.
Who are you talking about?
Dershowitz. It was a 45-minute presentation. He broke down the law and broke down the history of impeachment.
Right.
It was pure brilliance. And I'm going to tell you this. All the other speakers, lawyers, politicians, for 3 days, not a single word was worth listening to except Alan Dershowitz. You listen to his voice and you know Trump is getting off. They knew it too. That's why they discredited him. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're going to lose. And he knows it. His presentation sunk their case. It was spot on.
That's right.
And that's why they attacked him.
And message to Alan Dershowitz from the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We're running a little bit late, so I'm not gonna read it, but you could go and read it for yourself. This is an article by Joel Pollack. I think either the Federalist or Breitbart, but just look up Joel Pollack. Basically, Alan Dershowitz sues CNN, where it breaks down what Dershowitz actually said and what CNN claimed he said. And when you look at the two and you put yourself in the role of a judge, you know what's going to happen? You're going to come to the conclusion, Mr. Dershowitz, Attorney Dershowitz, you're going to win this case. So message to Alan Dershowitz from the Frontline with Joe and Joe and all of the good people who are with us here. Okay, follow this suit through all the way to the end and cost them the $300 million so that the mainstream media will be forced to change and stop lying about people.
Our last story tonight, and I think it's an important one because I want to make a point with it. A judge, as Joe said earlier in the show, set bail for $1 million each for some rioting that took place in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in the wake of police shooting a knife-wielding man. So let me give you a little background. First, the officer involved in the shooting was responding to a 911 call placed by the gentleman's mother, who said that her son was getting aggressive and attempted to break in the home. His name was Ricardo Munoz, for the record. His family said that he had a history of schizophrenia and a bipolar disorder and was not taking his medication at the time of this incident. Munoz was scheduled to go on trial for allegedly slashing 4 people in a knife attack in 2019. So this is not his first incident. That doesn't mean he should be killed, but just to give you some background on who he was. Now, the police, after this took place, basically arrested 12 adults and 1 juvenile for staging riots. And as I said, they had $1 million bail each. So that means you got to put up 10%, $100,000 to get out of jail. What does this say? This says to me that they mean business. That's number one. That's how this stops. That's how this stops. That's number one. Number two, the people of America are not behind the mob anymore. It's a loser for the Democrats. And by the way, now that you have a Supreme Court justice that is going to be put up, he or she, most likely it's a she, is going to be conservative. Any riots that take place works against the Democratic narrative.
Well, they know that.
But it's going to happen.
Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo actually admitted that.
They know that this is going to happen. They cannot come out in support of organizations that do this. Now, you'll watch the wordsmithing. They will not use the word Antifa. They will not use the word the phrase Black Lives Matter. Recently, Joe Biden was in an interview. It was another one of his embarrassing interviews where he played NWA, F the police. Did you hear that?
I did not hear that.
Oh, dude, it's embarrassing. His people must have cringed. He was trying to basically make an appeal to the homeboy type of thing. So he has his phone and he's jamming. I kid you not, NWA.
Really?
I swear.
That's crazy.
He doesn't get it, but that's beside the point. The point of the matter is this: the mob is a loser for the Democrats. It's a winner for Trump. During these judiciary period where they're going to pick somebody, any mob violence goes against Biden, unquestionably. But this is how it stops. You see, there's been too much of a light touch. This cannot go on anymore. And frankly, I think if Donald Trump wins, we're going to see him stop it. You have to put your foot down, like this judge did, in Pennsylvania, no less, with Wolf as the governor, basically saying, no, basically, these cops were justified. This man's running at them with a knife. He has a history of violence. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do as a police officer? He was killed. You riot. Guess what? You're going to jail and you're staying in jail. That will discourage 2/3 of the rioters. Once they put their foot down, the 2/3 of these riots end. You'll be left with 1/3. They're the hardcore people, and you deal with them too.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have a society without order. Sorry, I know order is a word that the left hates because they want to be able to do anything that they want.
Well, unless it's their order, but
exactly.
Unless it's
but
their order.
It doesn't work. You cannot have a society without order, and this is exactly the type of action that we need. It's good to see. The tide is turning. We're going to see more of it. You watch. It's going to happen.
Well, I really don't have anything to add to that because Resinello covered it perfectly. And Joe has taught me, because I listen to my brother Joe.
To him.
He has taught me not to get angry because we're going to get some negative comments. I only want to address one thing, okay? And this is for a paramedic in the chat room, okay? We're using Alan Dershowitz as an example of somebody fighting against the press, lying about that particular person, okay? I don't have to explain myself to you, but I will. I don't like Alan Dershowitz too much. He championed pornography in the 1970s, okay? He's pro-abortion, okay? We're not judging him or even talking about those things about Alan Dershowitz. We are simply outlining what he did in the impeachment hearing, all right, in defense of Donald Trump, okay, and how the media lied about him. We didn't bring in anything else. I'm not going to defend Alan Dershowitz on any of those issues, and Joe and I will argue with him and find ourselves against him 90% of the time. in this case, given his lawsuit, we are hoping he wins his lawsuit. For you to call us evil for taking that position, I think you're a bit misguided. We love you and we'll pray for you, but I thought that maybe you deserved an explanation as to why we were defending Alan Dershowitz in this particular case against CNN. We'll leave it there. Is that okay? I didn't get angry that time.
No, that was well done.
A couple weeks ago, I got real angry. Joe said, Joe, you can't get angry at people in the chat room. And I didn't get angry at you, paramedic.
Well done.
Because we love you. We love Robert DiPaola. I have to mention Robert because Robert said Bayonne's in the house. Bayonne! And everybody else. Obviously, we didn't get to everybody. But we know we see all your names up here, and we love you very much. We appreciate your prayers and your support. Joe and I are actually going to join Father Stephen Imbarrato on October 1st. And as long as the plans still hold, we're going to go down and we're going to pray a rosary, the entire rosary, not just one mystery, in front of Joe Biden's house. So we talk about sacrifice, not because we're better than anybody, but to be clear, Joe's going to sacrifice a day's pay, and so am I. And we're both going to take off from work, and we're going to go down and join Father Imbarrato.
And a bishop.
And we're going to pray for Joe Biden. That's why we're going there. We're not going there because we hate him. We're going there because we love him and we want his conversion. And we think that's a worthy thing to do. And Joe and I are also going to be having, for all you Jersey people, there's going to be a rosary rally in support of the police in front of St. Michael's.
Yeah, in Lyndhurst.
Is this etched in stone?
Yeah, absolutely. 9 o'clock in Lyndhurst at St. Michael's, and then in Linden as well at 11:30.
What's the parish in Linden?
I don't recall. It's a Polish parish. We'll let you know.
We're going to let you know about that, and we'll announce that more. So we have a bunch of rosary rallies coming up because we understand that no matter how much we shoot off our big mouths, and we do think this is important because we have to broadcast the ideas out there to refute all the lies and to shed some light on things for all you good people. But we are faithful Catholic men who ultimately are going to look to God to right the ship. And hopefully, prayerfully, we say we hope he uses us in any way he can, okay? And we welcome it. So we want to thank you all for being at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, we always go live across a number of different platforms, particularly Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share and follow and all that stuff on Facebook and YouTube. Also follow, please, Catholic Media and Holy Faith Media on Facebook and YouTube. That's our guy, Jonathan Ross, our friend up in Canada who produces our content, makes it look real nice and gives us the software available so that we could get out across multiple platforms. That's why our audience is growing. So Holy Faith Media, Catholic Media, and also we welcome and say hi to all you Arana Nation people, ARANA, up in Canada because we're on your platform also. So we thank you. Please subscribe and hit the little bell for all of those sites. And until next week, there's going to be a lot more to cover because it's just gotten a lot crazier. Until next week, we thank you. And remember that our conversation is your conversation. And that conversation, it's going on everywhere. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening.